Breaking the Ice, written by Kim Baldwin and narrated by Kim Baldwin. Chapter 1, October 21st, 9:30 a.m., north of Bettles, Alaska. Bryson Faulkner jerked up the collar of her coat as she stepped off the porch of her cabin. She lingered there, basking in the amber light of the late morning sunrise, surveying her surroundings for any hint of change. Beneath the rough-hewn table she'd lashed for cleaning fish and game, she spotted fresh wolf tracks in the mud. The animals no doubt lured there by the lingering scent of the sockeye salmon she'd had for dinner. There was no sign of the lurking predators now. Nothing stirred except the large raven that took off from a black spruce 20 feet away, zigzagging past her in an amazing display of aerial acrobatics to land on the porch railing. The bird studied her with intelligent black eyes and let out a raucous croak that ruffled the shaggy ebony feathers of his throat. "Mornin', Bandit!" Even before she reached into her pocket, he was in the air again, beating his wings slowly to hover a moment before lighting on her shoulder. She held up her hand, and he gobbled the offered raisins, nuts, and sunflower seeds, careful to avoid pinching the calloused skin of her palm with his stout bill. As he ate, she looked past him to the white-capped mountains that surrounded her cabin. Matthew's Dome, due north, was the most photogenic peak in her part of the endless Brooks Range. A rounded granite crest 4,600 feet high, it was set off from its neighbors by the Wild River, curving west, and Flat Creek, forking around its base to the east. But she used an unnamed mountain 300 feet higher to the northwest, a jagged and fiercely sharp pinnacle, as her weather gauge. The roiling slate-gray nimbostratus clouds blowing past the top confirmed the news she'd just received on her satellite phone. A fierce storm was headed her way, and fast. The one-room cabin she'd built with her own hands was nestled in the taiga forest that lined the Wild River at its confluence with Flat Creek. The valley floor between the mountains was wide here, nearly a mile across. Built on a rise to shield it from the high water of spring breakup, the log structure had a matching outbuilding for her snow machine and tools, an outhouse, and a small cache on high stilts. The cache kept her winter supply of game and salmon out of reach of opportunistic wolves, grizzlies, and other predators of the far north. Bryson regretted not refueling the plane after her last hop, but she'd barely made it home before dusk. Though Bryson had memorized every boulder and stump that littered her makeshift airstrip, it was still suicidal to take off or land in the dark. The gravel bar was less than 100 feet long. Any slight mistake, and she'd end up in the swift, icy currents of the Wild River. Once the river froze and she could land on skis, she'd have a longer, wider runway. But the daily window of opportunity to land at her homestead would be frustratingly narrow. The days were shortening fast. In another 2 months, at the winter solstice, daylight would last only 2 hours in her little piece of paradise above the Arctic Circle. Almost any job she might take would require her to remain overnight at the nearest improved and illuminated runway, 30 miles away in Bettles. She dropped the few remaining seeds on the ground, and as the raven hopped off her shoulder to go after them, she headed down the trail to her red Piper Super Cub. While the plane warmed up, she freed it from its lashings and carefully inspected the exterior for damage before beginning her pre-flight checklist. Though she needed to leave soon, she refused to be rushed through her meticulous and methodical preparations. The high wings of the Super Cub allowed her to taxi close to uprooted trees and boulders as tall as she was, and the model was one of the best at handling impossibly short runways and uneven terrain. Like many other bush pilots, she'd had it specially outfitted for the punishment it endured on a daily basis, with long, heavy-duty struts, reinforced axles and springs, and a dual landing apparatus that allowed her to set down on skis or oversized Tundra tires.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?